Here we are with our wee short film about the family. That's it, going back to this photograph again. It means a lot to me, this photograph. As I told you before, we stayed in 43 Cartwright Street, say roughly about there. At number 42, Reg and Rosie stayed. Up at 46 Cartwright Street was Henry Holroyd, this fella here, who later became our step-grandfather. As I said before, our own grandfather, James Gemmell, was killed in the Great War. And that was 1914. Roughly about that same time, Henry, here, lost his wife in hospital. She was rushed into hospital, and I understand it was something to do with childbirth. Anyway, she lost her life. So the two of them were single, trying to bring up a family. However, as I say, 2 years later, they got together and tied the knot. Well, Gran moved from 43 into 46 to be with her new hubby, and that's them there on their wedding day. The church at the back there was St Barnabas, where we were all christened at some stage or other. And the next photo is a rather precious one to me, because I've only got one like it. As I told you before, Henry was my mother's father. Annie was my dad's mother. And here, there's the two of them got married. Took me a while to try and get my head round that, but the two families came together. So in a way, I was lucky in a way I had two grandfathers, put it that way. A long while after it, Gran came up to Scotland with Grandad. And this photo was taken at the back of Cross Street where we stayed. And it's round at the back of the house. The door at the back, at the side there, that's Jimmy Houghton's back door. He stayed next door to us. But to give you an idea who's on this photo, no doubt you'll know. This one here's your James. That's Roy. That's wee Heather. My dad. My gran. My stepdad, granddad. My mum. Down here is Bill. William, as he likes to get called. He's older than me. I told him I'd get him back. Anyway, next to Bill was Mary, Curly Mary. Then there was Jean. Then there was me. And then there was June. The wee chap on the end here was, I'm nearly forgetting here, Uncle Reg and Rosie's son, Terry. I'll give you a bit more information about their family later on at some other stage. Here's a better, clearer picture. This again was round at the back of the house at Cross Street. For a wee bit information, those windows at the back there, that's where Jackie Gibson stayed, in Cobo Bray, and this was Gus Robertson's windows here. They stayed next door. Mind you, it's an old film, photograph. That was Grandad, and our James. You can't mistake Jean. Then Heather, Curly Mary, as we called her, June, were wee doll. They always carried dolls, these women. Anyway, that was that. To give you a wee idea, this is what Cross Street looks like now. And back in the late 40s, early 50s, this is the front door. Look, see the difference? It's all been rough casted, this house. And all if they walls could speak, oh, That's my granddad. I think is that my dad there? I think it's my dad. June, Gran, my mum, Reg, Rose, and that's Rose Child. Wee Anne, they called her. As I say in the other photo, it was Terry. They only had the two. Next was Curly Mary. She's surely fallen up. Always had day curls. Next was Jean and Heather. So it gives you an idea how the family all came together. Mary was accepted into the family like everybody else. We were all treated no different. But Henry done a very important thing as time went on. This here is a photograph. You'll notice with the wee photo here is Mary, wee Curly Mary. There she is there. She was everywhere with him. She treated him as a daughter. Well, this was Mary later on in years. Sadly, we lost her a couple of years back, but I still remember her. Mary herself, it was hard to understand at one time, but back in these old days, it was the same more or less all over. If a child was illegitimate, it was discarded by the family. It was acted upon as a sin, so to speak. Nothing nowadays, of course. I mean, it just happens and that's it. But this is what happened to Mary. Mary was going to be put into a home. But with them all staying more or less in the same street, Henry here heard about it and he said, there's no child going into any home. I'll take her here. So he got paper and all the rest of it. It ended up Mary came to stay with Grandad and Gran. And she was treated like his own daughters. And that was great, that was fantastic of doing that. So just to think, Mary was part of our lives for many years. She was famed for her curly hair. As I say, in every photograph you see, her curly hairs, it was amazing. Everybody commented on right blonde curly hair. But we all change as life goes on. And as I say, that's what Mary looked like before she passed away. Tess got me that photograph. And the bit was, Mary didn't like getting her photograph taken. It was all right in the old days. She had no choice. She did what she was told. But that's what I admired about him. Everything had to be done right. He went through all in his young days, a labourer to this, and he did all the heavy work and so on, until he went into the railways. And he was in that for a number of years, and as I said before, it became one of these protective jobs during the war. But just to think what they must have went through in those days. My mum and dad, we gathered this as years passed. They never ever talked about the war in the old days, never talked about it. And it's only now when we do a bit of research into their past, we understand why. And my next wee clip I'll do is about some of the ones we lost and where we have managed to track them down where they are, so to speak, because our families never talked about it. But that's a wee interesting story that I'll put up next. But it's funny how all things change. I went round to the old house on my scooter a couple of weeks back, and there a woman going in there, a young woman. And I said, do you mind if I take a photograph of your house? Why? I says, in the 1940s I was brought up here. By all means. I said, if they walls could speak. And when I look at this photograph, I hear a wee chuckling away, because I said next door was Jimmy Houghton, and he thought he was an operatic singer. And you could hear him sometimes practising in there. Well, you can imagine. My dad says, tell that bugger to shut up. Never forget. But Jimmy had 2 daughters and 2 sons. The oldest was Brian, then Joey. At one time I was Joey's apprentice as an engineer in Blackadder's. Then he had Vera and Brenda. I only found out recently Brenda had passed away, and she's actually buried with Jimmy up in Pullman. Not Pullman, at Grand Sable Cemetery. They're laid to rest there. But I've never heard from any of the other family since. But that's a wee story, what happened, and how 2 families came together and a new life started, so to speak. But a lot more happened, and I'll put that on another wee clip. Maybe you'll find it interesting. By the new